Hello everybody, welcome to Digital TechJoint. In this video, I'm going to show you and demonstrate to you how to create JWT token, that is JSON token, in ASP.NET Core application. So open up Visual Studio 2019, click on the project, select ASP.NET Core Web Application, click Next, name the project, and then click on Create and select API. Because we are going to create a API, web API that will actually integrate, where we will integrate this JSON token to authenticate the API request. Make sure that you untick configure for HTTPS and click on the create button. Now once the project is loaded, which is already loaded over here, make sure that you go to NuGet packages and install the following libraries. I have already done, so that we save the time. So make sure that you have Entity Framework Core SQL Server. Why? Because I'm using SQL Server as a backend database. Then Tools, Design, Entity Framework Core, and since we are going to demo out a JSON token creating of JWT in ASP.NET Core, we need ASP.NET Core Authenticated JWT bearer. This is very important. Now once all this package is installed, I am going to show you the database which I have already created. Now I have not get into more detail about the connection strings and creating a database and everything, which is already done. And I have referenced certain modules, videos in my description where you can refer on how to create APIs and everything. So I have created this database called JWT demo database, which has a table called users and which has following fields: username, mobile, and password. Now I'll go ahead and just add one username. It's already there, Alex, with some mobile number and password Alex. I will explain to you what we are going to do in this demo. So first thing is that before I go ahead and show the project and demonstrate the working of JSON token, let me run through this PPT, just 2 slides, just to explain you the core concept. Now JWT is nothing but JSON web token. Now assuming that there is a client, typically client initiates an API request to the server, and where the client will pass the username password to get authenticated. The server will authenticate the username and password, and then the server will assign you a unique token, that is a JWT token, JSON token, okay, along with the response. Now typically what happens is the client saves this token in the browser or in mobile, or so that this token, which is generated by the server, will authenticate the user, can be passed for other subsequent requests of APIs, so that the server knows the request from the client is an authenticated one, and it is not somebody who's acting and is trying to do a DOS attack or something like that. Now once in this flow, once the client passes the username and password, the server will validate and assign the token. Now for the subsequent API request, the client will pass the token along with the other parameters of the API. Now this token will be typically passed in the headers, okay, and then the server will validate the token, pass in the header, and then validate the token and then give the response back to the client. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to create an API which will authenticate the user in the database and then generate a token. Now basis that token, the user will then go ahead and say, give me the list of users which is there in your database. Now basis the token passed in, the server will then assign him or share him all the users. Now typically what does a JSON look like? So basically I have pasted the format of a typical JSON token. Now this JSON token has 3 parts. One is a header where we have the type of token. Obviously in this case this is a JWT. Then the what algorithm is used. Then the second is the claim. The claim is nothing but the user data, user role, expiry date, when do you want the token to get expired, and the third finally the signature. So I hope this is the concept is very clear to you guys. Now let's go and let's practically implement it. So now I've already set up the project. First thing is that I have created entity. Before that I have created a data context class. I've gone to the app setting JSON and I've added the required database connection string, which is over here. Then I've gone to the data context class. Then I've gone to the entities. I've created one entity which is matching with the data table, that is users, username, mobile and password. Another entity I've created called as a user token DTO. Now this entity is for returning the username and the token. So when somebody logs in, when we create an API and we pass in the username and password, then this will return, this user token DTO will be used to return the username and the token along with the request if the API has successfully authenticated the username and password. So this was the entity. Then we have the data context class where I've used these methods. I've declared a data set and a user control. So this is a controller class where I'm going to create the login method. Now before we jump into this, let us write the code that generates the JSON token, JWT token. Okay. Now for that, as per the standard format which I follow, I am going to create an interface as iToken. So I say add new item and I'm going to say interface and I'm going to name it as iToken service. Oh, there is some spelling. Okay, so change the name. Now this token will actually, this interface will actually implement a public interface called, sorry, this is already, so we need to make this public, sorry. And this is going to implement a method called create token, JWT token, and use the user class as a parameter. So I will pull in the reference of entity. So this interface uses a method, implements a method called create JWT token and takes user's entity as a input parameters. Now we go ahead and create the actual method services and we create a class that is going to, this is services. Now typically this service will inherit iToken service. So this uses this library and then this is going to use this method. So now you don't require to call this, so it's already correct. So this service is actually going to use create, which actually is going to implement the actual method for creating the JWT token. Now let's go ahead and first define some. So we are going to create one read only symmetric security key. Define a variable. Symmetrical security key is a key that actually does both encryption as well as decryption. Now we need to add certain library where I guess it's not implemented using Microsoft Identity Model Token. So this is what reference we need to do. Symmetric security key is a key with single key that encrypts as well as decrypts the key that we are going to pass. There is something called asymmetrical security key which uses the public and the private key concept. We are not going to cover that right now in this video, because for the demo purpose we need a symmetrical key where I can demonstrate the token validation and validation of the services token. Once we have the key, we create a constructor class. Okay, we don't want to pass this key. What we are going to use is a configuration class. We are going to use the I configuration because we are going to refer the token key. So we are going to say key equals to new symmetrical key, symmetrical security key, and encoding F8. I think so we need to pull in the system.text class. dot get bytes, and we're going to use config and token key. Now we are still not implemented this, we are going to show you. So basically what are we doing is that we are actually creating a symmetrical security key, a key which will encrypt and decrypt our tokens, and we are going to use token key configuration which I'll define, which will be a key for us. So whenever there is a JSON token, it requires key, then it requires a claim, and then the signature, which I explained to you in the start of the PPT. Now we go to the JSON setting and we add that key over here. So already, so you can name this anything, like anything which I've just showed you. You can use token key, and I can say this is my master key. I hope I've make this. Yes, token key. Okay, so I have defined the key. So this is going to be my master. This can be anything. This value can be anything, where it can be any value which you can put. So now this will take up that value. Obviously, symmetrical key requires a get byte, so it convert that into byte, and then the key will be generated. Now let us do the actual implementation of creating the token key. So what are we going to do in this method is that we are going to structure or construct the token key. So first thing is define a variable called claims. So we are in JSON token, there's something called claims. So we are claiming users. So JWT registered claims names. So we have to pull in certain class. First is system.security.claims, and then we have to pull in using system identity model token JWT. Okay, a new claim, what are we claiming? We are claiming the name ID. And what user we are using? We are using user.username from our entity class. So this becomes our first claim. This is the structure of the JSON which I am showing. Then we have where credentials, where we are going to pass the key new signing credentials. We are going to pass in the key which we generated in the constructor, and we are going to pass the algorithm, and we are going to take the most secure algorithm for HMA C# 256 signature. This we are going to, so this becomes our signature. So this becomes a credential. Now the third part of JSON token is a token new security token descriptor. Here we are going to describe the token, that is claim identity claims. This becomes for whom we are creating the JSON token, and then you say expires. So your token, depending upon your security, stringent, how stringent is your security environment, what is your base requirement for the security. So in this case, I'm saying add minutes, and then signing credentials equals to creds. So as I explained in the start, JSON token as the type of token and the algorithm, the claims and a descriptor. So here we have constructed the claim whom you are claiming this token to be issued for, then the credentials for that token, and the token descriptor which has when the token is going to expire, for whom the claim is, and all that which I explained in the first part of the session. Now after this, we security dot create token. Token handler dot create token, and then we pass the token description. And then we return the token to the calling method. Write token. So we have created a routine to generate the token, JWT token. Okay, so as I mentioned, claim, credentials, that is the key, and the entire description of the token, and then we write code to create the token and return the token back to the calling method. So now we have the methods ready, so we can implement the actual class. Now we go back to our users controller, and then we go back to user controller, make sure that you add the data context class which I created, inject that in the constructor, and now we write in the method for login. Let us open, so database is already open. let's add some more user to it. Okay, now we come over here. First method is we are going to write is http put post login, and we set public task action result user token. So we are going to pass in the user token DTO user login. We are going to pass in the entity user login data. Where first we are going to authenticate the user. It is users data dot username. So we are going to write the condition. Then we are going to return unauthorized access and say invalid username or password. Else, if everything is good, we are going to return the user DTO with the username and the token. Username and token, and then we are going to implement the token class. Here we have forgotten to call the iToken interface, so we will just do that. iToken service and say token. We call in the required libraries, and we need to also pass in the same token service. Right, so now we come over here in the method and we say create JWT token and we pass in the user semicolon. So now we have done a very simple implementation. We are going to use a login method now, and in the same login method we are going to generate, we are going to authenticate the user, as well as if the user is authenticated we are going to generate a token. So why don't we set a debugger over here and let's open our Postman. Let's run this. You can refer to my previous video. I'm sure I'll put that links in the description where I showed you how to use Postman, how to use create APIs and everything. Here I just focused on creating the routine for generating the token. So we will now, project is running, so we will go to login, and here is the URL. Okay, user and login. See, I've created a HTTP post here, login name. And then I am passing the username Alex, password Alex, and I'm going to click on send. So what has happened? Let me just check. Okay. Like where contest user return. Unable to resolve service for type JWT token interface I token while returning. Okay. Okay, so I have done a big blunder. I have not injected this in the app startup class. So that is an issue because once you create the services, you are supposed to inject the same in your app startup class. Otherwise, it will never know that what method needs to be called. So that was the issue basically. So in order to do that, okay, you need to go to the startup class. Here in the services, we say services dot add scoped, and then you call the I token service and the token service class. I'll pull in the required interface libraries references. So what is this add scope? Basically we are using this so that it the lifeline of this service is within the HTTP service and the scope is within the HTTP service, and obviously you can do this implementation without creating an interface and adding that over in the startup class, but it is a better practice so that you can use the same method to do mock testing, unit testing, and it's a better it's a better practice to do this. It's a good practice to do this, so I forgot to implement that. I forgot to add this reference over here, and that is why we were getting this error, object not available or not found. So I guess now it will work. I'm sure it will work now. Yeah, so let's do this. Yes, so now it has come over here. Now if you see, it has passed Alex with the password, and we are going to add a breakpoint, and it is yes, so it's come over here in this method. Now see what is we'll step down one by one. So first is the claim username Alex, and then it is already picked up the key which is in a byte format, and then it is setting up the description of the token, then it is creating token and it is returning the token back. So now if you look at the Postman, you see it is authenticated the user and it is shared the token. Now this token becomes a base which we will use in calling the other APIs. I'll also demonstrate what happens if you don't pass the token. For that, let's do one thing. Since our main code is implemented, let's quickly create two methods. One which will return all the data, and one which will return data, but we will force it to authenticate the method using this token. So if there is no token provided, you will not get the data from the method. Let's do that. I'll show it to you right away. So we are going to create two methods simple, so let's do that. Let's say http get, and so we are going to use allow anonymous request. What does this mean? That you are saying the method that anybody can request it without passing any token, and then we say public sync ask action result users, and we are going to say get all users, return await users. List. Fine. So this is not going to force to pass the token which we created, but we will create one more get method where we are going to, so we want to run and check this, so we will do that. So let's go ahead and try to get the records. So get all users. This is a API that will get all the users. Yes, it is running. So we click on the API. You can see Alex, James, and Willie. All three users are being displayed. So guys, we checked how we were able to fetch this record from the database by using this method and using allow anonymous, where we didn't have to pass any token key or authorize or authenticate the API request. Now, how do we force the APIs, the method, the solution for a token to be passed and a valid token to be passed? Now, before we get into that, so first thing is that we are going to create a method, and it will be the same. We can use the same method, but instead of allow anonymous, we are going to say authorize, and then we are going to say get users. So rest all remains the same. Now, in order that this method should work and it should expect a token, we need to add certain code in our startup.cs file. The first thing is that we are going to tell the service to use the token mechanism which we have set up and the key which is there in our app setting JSON file. So for that we need to write certain few lines of code. So we say services dot add authentication, and we are going to call JWT bearer defaults, and we are going to say authenticate scheme, enter, dot add JWT bearer options enter, and options dot token validation parameters, new token validation parameters, and we say validate issuer signing key through, so validate the issuer signing key, then issuer signing key equals to new symmetric symmetrical security key, and we use the same code encoding .utf-int.get bytes, and we say configuration token key, then validate issuer was and validate audience was semicolons here and then here. For us, these two code are important, where we are seeing to validate the API HTTP request and use the key that we have configured it. So these two methods actually forced for an HTTPS request to expect a token, a valid token. Now after we add this code in the services class, okay, config services class, we need to go to config, and after app.use routing and before use authorization, we are going to say use authentication. That's it. Now once we set up the startup.cs class, we come back to our users controller and we run this code now, the one which we wrote. Only difference is authorize. Remember to add the authorize method. Now once you authorize this method, the code set up in the config class will trigger, as well as it will force you to provide the authentication, provide the token key. Now let's run this first and see the error which we get when we don't pass the token. So I say a new request and I say get, and I say this is get users, okay, and I'm just simply clicking on send. And let's expect what, so, oh sorry, I didn't run this, one second, okay, so I click on send and see what happens. What is the error? 404 not found. Okay, I'm using the API and this is okay. So I forgot this. So this is get users. Okay, now let us see the error which will be displayed. 401 unauthorized. So this is an unauthorized request. Why? It's expecting a token, a valid token. Now let's go ahead, click on login, and let's hit login Alex and get a valid token. So this is the token which we got from Alex after he was successfully authenticated, where our method was called. Now we come back to our new request here. Okay, we are getting an unauthorized access. What you need to do in order to pass the token in the header, click on the headers, click on key, select authorization. In the value, type bearer, space, and paste the key, token key. Now let's see what happens. Yes, we got it. Now if I change the value of the token, look at the error which I get. I had 1 in between E and C, unauthorized access. So this is the way, like, here we are able to guess. So I hope you guys were able to understand. I will just reiterate the structure again. We created a project, we created an interface which and implemented a service which actually created a token, by passing in certain values, and we use the Postman. We created methods where we demonstrated a method which allows to fetch the data without passing any token, and then a similar method which actually authorizes and forces the method to pass in the required token. We showed you how do you set up the startup class to accept the service to pass in the token and use not only authorization but also authentication. So I guess guys you really liked the video. It was insightful. I request everybody to please do subscribe and like the channel. Also very important thing, please do share your feedback, and also to share what are the videos you like me to create in ASP.NET. And I am also going to share videos on ASP.NET, AWS. I recently got certified as a solution architect, so I expect that you share me the feedback. I expect that you people will like and subscribe my channel. Thanks a lot guys.